Transportation Authority to order at 6 o'clock. Please give your attention to this short video. Emily, over to you.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Emily. Could you please conduct the roll?
Member Erickson? Present. Member Esquivel?
Present.
Member Essel-Sego?
Present.
Member James?
Present.
Member Miller?
Present.
Member Patel?
Here.
Member Saunders?
Here.
Member Stark?
Present.
Member Vedantam?
Present.
Member Wayne?
Present.
Vice Chair Lovejoy?
Present.
Chair Carr?
Here.
Hey, we do have a quorum with members Ash and Bankert and Shakarian absent. Member Esquivel is on Zoom.
Thank you again, Emily. Happy to say we have a new member, and that is Ravi. And I'm going to try this, and if I fail, just let me know. Vedantam? Close?
That's very close.
Very close. But, and why don't I let you correct me and provide a brief introduction?
Yeah, my name is Ravi Vedantam. Been living in Contra Costa County for 18 plus years and a resident of Brentwood over 8 years now. Civil engineer by profession. Love to volunteer on community services, so I'm really excited and glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to have representation from the east side of the county. So looking forward to that. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Emily, have we received any written public comments?
We do not have any written or virtual public comments.
Very good. And do we have any members of the public on Zoom at this moment?
We have no public comments.
Or commentors. Next item on the agenda, always in June, is almost always anyway, election of chair and vice chair for the upcoming fiscal year, July 25 through June of 2026, effective July 1st. New chair would conduct the July meeting. We can handle the nomination and vote under one motion and roll call vote, or they can be done separately. I will open it up for nominations. A member can nominate themselves. The vice chair typically rotates into the chair seat if desired. And I think Kristen will express that desire, and then we can maybe speak about the vice chair a bit. So before making a nomination and a motion, let me confirm that our current vice chair is ready and willing to step into the chair role.
Ready and willing.
Excellent. So then that always makes the next discussion the interesting one, which is who may wish to step into the role of vice chair. Is there anyone who is willing to do that at this time?
I'll put my name out there.
Excellent. Love it. Anybody else?
Technically, it
want to-
requires a motion, right? So,
Well, I was going to see if there was
and then we can do a combine, yeah.
Yeah,
we can do
then we'll do a
combine motion.
combine if
Certainly.
everyone,
By all
if
means.
everyone is comfortable with Dennis putting himself out there for vice
Indeed.
chair. Let me just kind of take verbal cues. I'm not seeing any concerns at this point. So on that basis, I will make a motion that we nominate current Vice Chair Lovejoy to the role of chair, and we nominate Member Eselsago to the role of vice chair. And
Second by Miller.
thank you, Member Miller. And I think at this point you do a roll call.
Public
Emily?
comments, if you don't mind.
Huh?
Public comments, if you don't mind.
Public comments.
We have no public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I make a comment? I wanted to second it. Can I third it? Or, oh, that's okay, I'll just vote. But Member Miller beat me to it, so thank you.
He's such a troublemaker. So,
I am.
We'll make sure you get a chance to make a moving motion, Member Esquivel, at some point here in the future.
Looks like she's in motion right now. Okay,
Exactly.
go ahead.
Exactly. So I think you can now make a roll call vote.
Member Erickson? Thank you. Member Esquivel?
Yes,
Member Eselsago?
Aye.
Member James?
aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Member Saunders?
Aye.
Member Stark?
Aye.
Member Vedantam?
Aye.
Member Wayne?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovejoy?
Aye.
Chair Carr?
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously with members Ash, Bankert, and Shakarian absent.
Excellent. Congratulations to both of you. And with that, I think we're to the consent calendar. Summary of actions from our last meeting on the 28th of May and acknowledgement of the member attendance log. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent calendar items? Emily, so I don't forget, any written public comments?
We have no public comments.
Thank you. And no one from the public to speak, so,
Mr. Chair, might I move that we accept these minutes as written?
and would someone who's remote like to make a second?
I second that.
Excellent, well done. Emily, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Member Erickson? Aye. Member Esquivel?
Yes,
Member Eselsago?
Aye.
Member James?
oh, I'll abstain.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Yes.
Member Saunders?
Yes.
Member Stark?
Yes.
Member Vedantam?
I don't know if I can still approve it because I wasn't there last time.
You can. Yeah, it's up to you.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Member Wayne?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovejoy?
Aye.
Chair Carr?
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously with Member James abstaining and members Ash, Bankert, and Shakarian absent.
Emily, thank you again. We now move into our regular agenda items. Today, there is two. Only one is a checklist, and that will be introduced by Matt Kelly and be presented by Kevin Rohani. So over to you, Matt, for the introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Matt Kelly, Principal Transportation Planner with the Authority. So I'll give a little intro before I introduce our speaker today, especially for our newest member of the committee. These are our Growth Management Program checklists. The Growth Management Program is part of the Measure J sales tax. And these checklists are how we, how we make sure that the 19 cities and towns and the county are complying with the requirements of the Measure J Growth Management Program. So I'm not, we do, every time before we get into a new cycle of checklists, we do kind of a tutorial. So I'm not going to go through that today because we did it a few months ago, but just want to highlight one of the items because Oakley is special. Oakley is the newest city in Contra Costa County, and at the time that Measure C, the predecessor of Measure J, was passed, there was no city of Oakley. So when the Growth Management Program was put together and the checklist, requirements were put together, you'll notice item 11 on the checklist is maintenance of effort. And the idea behind maintenance of effort is that the cities that are now receiving, Measure J return to source funding, presumably for some of their maintenance expenditures, should still be spending approximately the same amount, or at least the same amount that they were spending prior to the passage of Measure C and Measure J on their local roads maintenance, and not using the Measure J funds to replace those general funds that they were using before. So Measure J should be an additive, when it comes to funding local maintenance of local roads. So back to Oakley, because Oakley didn't really have a history of funding their own local roads maintenance, they were grandfathered in without an MOE requirement. So where, most cities will have like an annual requirement of $500,000 or $1 million if they're a larger city. The city does not have that requirement, so that's why you'll see their item blank. So, you're welcome to ask the staff more about that, but I just wanted to give you kind of, for most members of this committee, they're not aware of that caveat for Oakley. So I just wanted to point that out, as well as kind of introduce the item. But let's, since we've only got one checklist tonight, let's get to it. It is the city of Oakley. Kevin Rohani is here. He's the city's Director of Public Works and the city engineer, wears two hats. He is going to present the city's calendar year 22-23 checklist. So, Kevin?
Okay, thank you, Matt. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, I'm pleased to present you City of Oakley's compliance checklist for this year. We prepared a brief presentation, then I'll be happy to answer any questions. City of Oakley, as Matt somewhat mentioned, we're new in this field. Oakley just had the 25th anniversary last year, which was a big deal for us. It's a growing community at the far east Contra Costa County. Predominantly has been a bedroom community to the rest of the Bay Area, but we're trying to, develop more of a commercial base, so we can create some jobs in Oakley so people don't have to drive Highway 4 every day back and forth. And we use Measure J primarily for roadway projects. A lot of Oakley, our roadways was inherited from the county, built decades ago. A lot of them are kind of rural roadways, two-lane roadways without any of the kind of modern city standards. Over the past years, we've taken great strides to improve our roadways and build them to modern standards with all of the kind of creature comforts of the roadways, let's say out in Walnut Creek, the curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike lanes, landscape, medians, traffic signals. They tell me 20 plus years ago, Oakley had 1 traffic signal. As we speak, we have nearly 40 traffic signals. And as development takes place, developers build traffic signals. So our projects is, one of them is on your checklist is the street repair and resurfacing, which we use Measure J plus other local funding sources that we have to perform assortment of roadway repair and maintenance on some of the older roads. Fortunately, as new development takes place, developers build brand new subdivisions. So at least those roads are good for a while we're helping to rehabilitate and improve some of the roadways. In addition, there are many parts of Oakley that has been predominantly 2-lane roadways without any of the typical improvements that, let's say, you see out here. So over the years, we've tried to acquire right-of-way, fix these roadways, widen them to accommodate the added traffic. Oakley right now has a population of over 45,000. That has nearly doubled over the past 25 years, and with the ongoing housing that's being constructed, it is expected in the next 10 plus years, maybe close to 60,000 population. So just to keep up with the growth, our O'Hara Avenue widening project south of Laurel Road. Laurel Road, if you're familiar with Oakley, is the only kind of direct connection we have to Highway 4. And used to be an old 2-lane road. Over the past years, section by section has been widened. And O'Hara is the other north-south corridor that was 2-lane, and this project widens it to a 4-lane roadway. Typical, road improvements, and this is the Laurel Road. I took these pictures yesterday. You see construction is underway. Half of the road is widened, the rest looking south toward Brentwood will be widened as a part of this project. This project's under design now. We anticipate construction in 2026. As a part of our development, we are really encouraging development in Oakley. Oakley is a very developer-friendly because its development which basically kind of keeps our operation going, whether it be, and primarily is housing, but we're starting to get some commercial development. Right now, they are building, a developer is constructing a new shopping center at the intersection of Laurel Road and O'Hara, just up the road from a picture you saw. This is a new Safeway shopping center that's been in talking stages here for over 20 years. Finally, Safeway is building the Safeway store, developer for Safeway, and there are a number of other pads that are going to be for restaurants, coffee shops, more commercial base, which is obviously a huge thing for Oakley. As far as the ADUs, as you see, because of just the nature of Oakley is not similar to, let's say, Walnut Creek or some of the more condensed areas where there's a lot of ADU taking place. In the last year, we had 15, and this year, half of the year is only 4. So it's relatively small, but we get applications for ADUs in Oakley. One of the projects, there are a number of residential projects. We are, like I said, the great majority of development right now is residential. And almost all right now are along the East Cypress Road corridor. This is the roadway that goes from Main Street, the old Highway 4 back in the day, all the way east, that if you basically runs into the delta, you go further, you'll be in the water. And that roadway, over the past 2 years, and for the next 2 years, our whole focus, that's been a priority for the council to fix East Cypress Road. East Cypress Road is the only access way to Bethel Island and Jersey Island. So folks out there in the times where we've had emergencies, fires and things, everybody has to drive through this East Cypress Road, and one accident could close this road. So it's been a top priority. We have worked night and day to fund it, and those projects are under construction. So East Cypress Road from Main Street all the way to Bethel Island Road, by the time 2027 comes along, will be a 4-lane roadway, again, curbs, sidewalks, medians, bike lanes, everything, with nothing like what it is today, which really enhances the, not only the accommodate for all the traffic out there, but for the new subdivisions. This is a borough subdivision that's under construction, again, as we speak. It's about a 200-lot subdivision just west of Jersey Island Road along East Cypress Road. And we have all of the major residential developers that you hear, they work in Oakley. This particular project is being built by KB Homes. They've done other projects, and they built this. This is under construction. Cypress Crossing, this is a project on the other side of East Cypress Road. It's about 100 lots subdivision, also built by KB Homes. This subdivision is finished. They're working across the street. There's a huge turnover of farmlands out there. Many of the kind of pasture lands that they use for cattle grazings, it's all for sale. You drive the road, you see for sale sign, and developers are buying these and going through the entitlement process and build residential houses. Also, Oakley, we have a lot of vineyards, and a lot of those are being turned over. The kind of the wine industry, there's a less demand for grapes, and as a result, we have a number of vineyards that they're not even planting them, and those who are planting, they have a difficult time finding buyers for the grapes. So as over the years, there's just a transition from more agricultural to a more urban setting. Currently, our largest development project, again, is all the way at far east, East Cypress Road at Bethel Island Road. This is a 800 lot plus subdivision, huge project by De Novo Homes is building this. They started, the houses are being built, houses are occupied, they're building them as fast as they can, and there are buyers. I think as long as kind of this side of the hill in San Jose and San Francisco, prices are high. These houses have a appeal. There's certain kind of starter homes. These are generally in the 700 range. So still, I mean, people have to put up with the commute and those logistics, but they come buy a brand new house. So this subdivision, again, is our largest, will go on probably over to the next 5-7 years before they built all the homes. Has the largest park, a whole assortment of features, playground, lake, so folks out there really get to enjoy life. And this is literally a stone throw from a delta. You can walk from here up to the delta. The drainage system from this subdivision outflows to the delta. So this, again, this is our largest project right now, residential project that's happening. The Safeway project that I mentioned at the corner of Laurel Road and O'Hara is under construction, again, as we speak. The grand opening of the center is slated for November of this year. Developers working fast and furious, working through all of the complications of construction. And we're certainly very proud that this will be a very nice upscale shopping center that we just don't have that in Oakley. So kind of put our name on the map in terms of more upscale type of development that's taken place. I'm very proud of this project. We've been working at it with the development team for 2 years, and if all goes according to plan, they should have a ribbon cutting ceremony sometimes in November of this year. This briefly concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll go ahead and go around the room for questions or comments from committee members. For the advantage of our new member, let me start on Chris's end and let Mr. Saunders kick us off.
So a couple, little question, then maybe a little bigger one. So was the 15 kind of ADU thing, do you have any sense of why it was so large compared to the other years? Is something going on or just a anomaly?
Really nothing special going on. I think just the nuances of the market. Perhaps last year, 24, there was more people heard about it or got engaged with
Okay.
it. So far, we have 5. We may have just a handful of others the rest of the year.
And do you understand what they're being used for, or is that very difficult to determine?
That I don't know exactly what they're used. I would assume, like most of the ADUs, they use them for rentals. One of the issues with Oakley, reason people go out there to buy houses in any of the subdivision mentioned, there is a yard. I mean, we're looking at 5,000, 6,000 square foot yard. So there is some resemblance of the yard. So perhaps, again, this is just my own assumption, folks think, okay, I can build the ADU, rent it for 1,000, 1,500, just added income to pay for some of the mortgage.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And then on the, obviously, you've got all kinds of greenfield projects. I mean, can you just sort of talk a little bit? You've mentioned bike lanes a number of times, but how are you trying to connect the communities, and sort of what are the challenges that you face with that? Because obviously, you've got to wait for the developer to do it, and that's probably spotty. But I mean, how's that working, and what kind of challenges do you have?
Correct. I mean, we're a development-driven community. A lot of these improvements, we have to wait. Developer builds a subdivision and does the improvements alongside of it. Those that are not developer-driven, I mean, we come up with, as a part of our street improvement program and capital improvement program, we put projects to widen the roadways within the funding we have available. And anywhere we widen, we put the bike lanes. For instance, right in front of Safeway on O'Hara Avenue, there was no bike lane. So as a part of the off-site work that's been done in conjunction with Safeway, bike lanes are being installed. So, and connect basically Laura Road end to end now has bike lanes, versus just a few years ago, maybe half of it had bike lanes. So it's an incremental process for us. In Oakley, we do not have a huge demand and a push from the community. I mean, we don't have a large bicycle community just because of the nature of our communities. People have to get on their cars every morning at dawn, come out this way, and this time of the day go back home. So there's less bicycle communities yet. Any projects we do, we make sure we have our complete street program. So we build it to a kind of modern standard. And again, as time goes by, and the connectivity will take place as projects get built.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have just a few questions. First one, how does the city allocate its local street maintenance and improvement funds across transportation modes? I think when I was going through the report, I was trying to determine, like, for instance, how you all are approaching that, and how are these investments prioritized relative to the housing growth, especially in the high-density areas?
In Oakley, unlike, let's say, Walnut Creek, that you see multi-story apartments, condos, we have tried every which way to encourage, entice developers to come and build that type of housing over there. And they have come and they all, at the end of it, say, well, this model doesn't work there. Again, in Walnut Creek, you're in the hub of things, apartment works. Out in Oakley, people don't come to live in apartment because a lot of the kind of the more urban settings availability is not there. So apartments, there are several kind of moderate low-income apartment projects developers have built through grants and other government incentives that they have gotten. But like we do not have townhouse complexes, we don't have condominiums, and land is there. It's just developers, once they look at it, it all comes back to single-family housing. Now the lots have gotten smaller. We used to have a lot of subdivisions with 10,000 square foot lots. Now they go through the planning process and they say, well, people don't want a large lot. They don't want to deal with maintenance, this, that. So they're now building houses on a 4,000 square foot lot. So everything has been condensed. And to your point about maintenance, we, in city of Oakley, we depend greatly to the funding sources we get, let's say, from Measure J and other sources, because without it, we do not have a huge sales tax generation in Oakley. Our budget, just for your information, the entire city's budget, barely about 10% of it comes from sales tax. You compare it to Walnut Creek and how much of Walnut Creek's income come from the sales tax, just because we don't have the commercial tax base. So we have to look at every opportunity. We'll combine any funding for street repair, resurfacing, assortment of projects. It's all, hardly we have projects that one source of funding pays for the entire project. So we cut it up in pieces and put the kind of puzzle together that way.
Thank you. My next question, so now I think it's PDF page 5A15. But I guess I wanted to understand, I think you alluded to this a little bit, but maybe I missed it. The 0 units under SB 35, the streamlining provisions, if you could maybe touch on that. I guess I'm maybe a better way to articulate it is that how is this, like with the 0 units, what specific actions has the city taken to align the Measure J GMP implementation with SB 1 for the multimodal corridor plan? And how is this being integrated to strengthen your eligibility for the state funding? Because I think there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I'll answer best I can.
Yeah.
I'm definitely don't claim to be expert on the planning side of things. My planning colleagues assist with a lot of those, but as any of these projects get developed, from large to small, from an 800 lot subdivision to much smaller ones, it goes through the planning process, and they're making sure that anything that gets approved is in accordance with all of the applicable state rules and regulations. Obviously, there's a big push, I think, statewide and here and there for more affordable housing units and how to, we have affordable overlay zones throughout the community, trying to, again, encourage a more affordable housing unit. A lot of those generally needs to be near transportation hubs. Out in Oakley, the bus system is the Tri-Delta Transit that operates in the Far East County, is the bus system. And they take passengers from Oakley, Brentwood to the Antioch BART station, who want to then get on the BART and move to other parts of the community. So hopefully I answered part of the question.
Yeah, no, you did, thank you. And I think you answered this too, but maybe just to get a more of like a, I don't know, maybe a little bit more rationale, just for me to understand. How do you incorporate like an equity framework to evaluate how Measure J funds like benefit, your vulnerable populations? You touched on like some projects for like the low income, but maybe if you can expand on.
Sure. The low income housing, again, these are all development. We don't, as a city, don't go build housing. We're just not in that business. There are sites that, as they go through the planning process, they're zoned for certain set of housing, whether it be a regular, medium income, low income, and they're zoned, and developers, when they come, develop. But back to the point of Measure J, we use it, again, our let's say, street needs are across the city. We don't necessarily look at it from, income level. Our community is well mixed. It's not kind of this side of the town is lower income, that side of the town is higher income. We try to spread based on the needs of the street, not necessarily, the classification of the folks living out there. Again, we don't receive, many millions, so the funds we get, we spread it across assortment of projects citywide.
Thank you.
Yeah, so is the Oakley train station still going to open up on August 2025? Is that?
Probably not. I think that's fair to say. August is 2-3 months away. We understand it's going to happen. The project has been designed by Amtrak, and it's our understanding. In fact, they're coming to make an update to the council in July. That project is in the bidding phase. Probably start construction, what I'm hearing, fall of this year, completion by summer of next year.
Yeah, so I guess, so Tri-Delta Transit, right now there's 3 buses, I guess 383, 391, 300X. I know there's going to be, Oakley, there's going to be a lot more housing. I was wanting to know what kind of plans you have for maybe increased bus service. Also, is the general plan, when was the last time you guys updated your general plan?
I believe it was 2020.
2020 for the general plan, and then of course you do housing every year. Are you planning on doing high-density housing around the Oakley train station? Is that in the general plan?
I think yes. It's all depend on the prospective developers who want to come build high-density housing. This platform, and by the way, the Oakley train station is not what train station perhaps some think. It's a big building with all components. It's a platform station, basically. Amtrak comes, they stops the train, you get off the train, you walk a short distance, your cars is parked in the parking lot, and there is a bus stop that you go with buses. It doesn't have buildings, restroom, those things. And it's, we've been told it's basically a morning and afternoon. So morning from all the folks from Modesto area who, let's say, work in Oakland, San Francisco, brings them along that, drop them at Oakland, and they use trains and other means of transportation. But we work with Tri-Delta Transit, the bus company. They dictate where their buses come, where their buses go. Tri-Delta Transit actually, about 4 years ago, they built a new parking lot. They call it their Park and Ride Station. at intersection of Main Street and East Cypress Road. It's a very beautiful parking lot, built out, and their buses come through that, drop off passengers and pick up passengers. And that's been used. I think once the platform station is built, their business definitely is going to pick up, because we're told the bus will come right in front of in the downtown where the train station platform is, again, to pick up passengers. And then from that, they come to Antioch BART station, and then people have more ways to kind of get out of the area.
Yeah, and I understand Oakley's a small town now, but I know there's between Oakley and Brentwood, that area, I think I heard in the next 10 years there'll at least be 60,000 units, houses, apartments that are going to be put in that area. So people will be there, but thank you very much.
Certainly. Yeah, I know there are apartments more in Brentwood, but in Oakley, as of now, all the things I hear through planning is single-family housing.
Thanks.
Just off of those questions about the, is it the San Joaquins that would stop at the Oakley station?
Yes.
So as part of your, do you guys have like a specific plan that you're developing for the station area in terms of like developing transit-oriented development or communities around there? So that's a sort of a baseline requirement for what type of development gets built around the station?
Yes, Oakley has a downtown-specific plan that caters and provides guidance for those types of development. Over the past few years, we have built the downtown. Downtown Oakley, if some of you may have driven through it 10 years ago compared to what it is today, you wouldn't recognize it. We built parking lots. We built our entire infrastructure around this San Joaquin rail station. It's been going on talking for 10 plus years, and looks like it's finally going to get constructed this year. So all around it is specific planned and zoned for more dense residential. And, you know, we definitely encourage developers.
Yeah.
It just, we need them to.
It needs to pencil out, right,
Yeah.
for them. I guess the other question I had, because I've moved out to Brentwood area during COVID, and I know a lot of people in Brentwood and even in Oakley that moved out there during COVID when everyone was working from home, and you know, so you could buy a house, to your point, and afford a house and a yard, but still work your tech job in the Bay Area. Are you guys noticing a lot of people returning to the office and therefore kind of a dip in your prospective residential development? Or are you guys still seeing from the developer side that there's you know, a desire to continue at the same pace?
I haven't noticed in our offices like dip, as you said, in the development. All the developments, you know, the large de novo project, the KP Homes of the world, they're building them as fast as they sell them. And I asked the question from many of them, I said, you guys, you know, selling these? And no, they said most of them are even pre-sold. Because it's still, when you compare, let's say, Oakley to Walnut Creek, or to San Jose, San Francisco, same house is easily doubled, if not more.
Right.
And I think that's the draw that people come out there. Yeah, during the COVID, I guess there was a big influx, but we haven't noticed that now. People are going, they just get in their car every morning and drive back this way.
Yeah, I think you got to have a good, unique opportunity with the San Joaquin station there to build around there.
We are definitely,
Yeah.
we've been looking forward to that for years. And hopefully, once that project gets started construction this year, that would kind of revitalize a lot of downtown. There are some older properties that are kind of prime for development, but I think once people see the trains, okay, maybe there's
You're right, exactly.
enticement.
Once you build the train, then they'll
Yeah.
come, right? So, thank you.
I apologize if you, sorry, Ed Miller, Clayton. I apologize if you outlined this very clearly. Now, when you were talking about the train station coming in, I believe you said there was going to be a bus station, also kind of a complex that was a sort of a transportation complex that was going to be there. Do you happen to know if there is a plan to have an express bus or something that goes from that station directly to the E-train station over at Antioch?
I believe there is. Again, that's all driven by Tri-Delta Transit, and they're going through their own restructuring and fine-tuning their operation. I know, and it was the kind of the most efficient mode of operation. The new kind of park and ride lot they built at corner of, I mean, it's a beautiful parking lot. You look at it, it's just prime. People come there and get on the bus, and they bring them to the E-BART station. Just down the road, maybe a mile from it, is downtown Oakley, where we built all of the infrastructure, the parking lot, and there's a bus station, bus stop, literally within a stone throw from where the trains stop. So it's conducive. It's the pieces of puzzle coming together. Once the platform station is built, I think then Tri-Delta will really
Adjust to the demand, yeah. Just because, well, and I guess based on your description and the way that things are already laid out, it might not be an express bus, but it might be a bus that goes from the train station to the park and ride and then directly to the,
Yes.
and that would be the most logical use of resources, but it, yeah, and so that, you're right, that's actually a different board that talks about the bus stuff, so, but I just thought to myself, it's when that rail station does come in, you will have some people that have been, I don't know, Stockton or, you know, other places farther east that are gonna, some people are gonna spy that as an opportunity to maybe locate out even further, and then ride in, but they're gonna want a straight shot to the BART terminal. Yeah.
all of around the East Cypress Road corridor, you have subdivision after subdivision being built, hundreds. And all these folks could come to the new park and ride station at Cypress and Main Street, park their car, get on a bus. Bus will bring them to the train station. They can get on a train and head this way or go to the Antioch BART station. So the connectivity is there.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed you got off lucky. When you mentioned kind of the one road over to 4, I started thinking about fire stuff, but you're not in the same boat as like a Moraga or anything like that. You have multiple exits with Main Street going over to 160, and then you could go further east as well. But I noticed you guys got completely lucky and have zero. You don't even have moderate fire zones. You're all low.
Well, but actually there has been, over the past few years, it's been fire and flooding. And that East Cypress Road, I've been in it, cases where on winter we had floods and the road is closed. And once that road is closed,
it's no longer an egress for fire.
There is nothing. I mean, not only for Oakley residents, but also Bethel Island. I mean, Bethel Island, everybody drives on East Cypress Road to come out west. We've had cases of brush fires, close the road. We've had cases of fatality accidents, close that road. And, you know, it's amazing. People don't realize how much traffic is on that East Cypress Road. You close it for 5 minutes, this thing backs up to almost to Bethel Island. We're building it as we speak. So it's a very complex traffic control. We're trying to keep one lane open, and a lot of our clientele, they drive large trucks, trailers. I mean, it's not.
They can't just turn
Priuses
around,
driving
yeah.
by,
I'll be respectful of the other members, but I just sound like then that you do have some complex planning ahead for you there. And it may be, it's a mixed bag of, there's the blessing of you don't have any designated high fire risk area by the state, the new state maps.
Yes.
So that's a blessing in the sense of your residents will not be visited by very high insurance costs, but it may turn out to be a double-edged sword in the sense that it may exclude you from consideration for some state grants or funding that would be to mitigate areas that are at great risk because of lacking egress. All right, and now I'll cede the rest of the time.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and I see, these complexities of planning, and it looks like you're putting your focus on, the right places. I just wanted to have a little plug for CCTA's bike park, and just knowing that you're growing a bike community with youngsters who are learning to ride bicycles. Just wanted to ask, planning for the future, do you have a bike and ped plan?
That's one of those things we would like to do. We're just, like many cities, we struggle with staffing. We've been trying to, we lost, our public works department, our engineering staff is 3 people. It's myself, our engineering manager, and associate engineer. Our associate engineer left for private industry in December 2013. And we're sitting here in June, July of 2025, and we still have not been able to fill that position through multiple recruitments. So, yes, it is on our to-do list, but past 2 years and probably next 2 years, our whole focus is trying to get this East Cypress Road built, because on top of this roadway project, this road crosses over the Contra Costa Water District Canal that they have undergrounded, but right at the East Cypress is open. And just working through them has been, as you can imagine, an extremely complex project to build this roadway. Roadway has to be elevated 10 foot in the air to put the canal. So those contracts have been executed, and the pipe that's it's a 10-foot diameter pipe that's gonna enclose this canal. We're told expected to be delivered to us by end of July for installation. So that will be worth the admission ticket.
Thank you, that's all I had.
I'll move over to Member Stark.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that you use Measure J funding for things like road repair, and you mentioned that there were also some other local funding sources. Do you mind telling us what those are?
Yeah, we have, as a part of our budget, we have assortment of funds. One of the funds is general capital project. We have a roadway maintenance and rehab funds that we take some percent of the general fund. Council has recognized that the streets are important to keep them in good shape. So those are a couple of them that I can think top of my head that we supplement. And when we get, sometimes we get a grant funding to do more major roadway improvements, widen the roadway, reconstruct it. But for most of our traditional repair, maintenance, dig outs, pavement patches, slurry seals, we combine these funding sources.
For the grants, where do those usually come from?
Those are state grants. We process them when we get through Caltrans.
Got it.
City has hired a grant consultant, knowing our need for grant funding. They're out of Sacramento, and they're look for grant opportunities and come talk to us. There's this grant you can apply and that grant. So they help us pursue grants.
Yes, free money is always a great resource.
Yes, it's difficult to get, but we pursue it.
Nice. And then I had a question about the O'Hara widening project. Is that an example of a project where you would have community engagement? Or is that just kind of done through the city?
Not more, I mean, the projects are when we build a park, for instance. It's a more engaging. We meet with folks and, well, what do you like? It's a more, let's say the O'Hara is just pretty much standard roadway widening in front of a vineyard. There's not even resident there. So on that project, probably we notify the residents of the area about the project when we do our planning. But that particular engagement is not much to be engaged. But on more high-profile projects or parks, definitely we meet with folks and offer suggestions, ideas, concept, we brainstorm, things of that nature. But that particular project probably is not a good candidate for public engagement. We do, recently we redid our website. City of Oakley finally got a kind of a modern, functional website on our side of the operation, Public Works. We updated on a regular basis with all of the projects and things we do to get engagement from the public. The administration encourages people to get engaged at various means through our social media platforms. There's an on-demand system that you can ask questions about anything. So we're engaged with the public on assortment of topics.
That actually brings up another question. Does Oakley have like a bicycle pedestrian advisory committee or anything like that?
No, we do not.
Okay. And then my last question, so I know you mentioned that there isn't like a big biking community in Oakley, but with the new subdivisions that have been built, can you speak to how like either walkable they are or like what the connectivity from those subdivisions to trails and schools and shopping centers, like what that looks like?
There is the new subdivisions that are built, as I said, primarily along the East Cyprus corridor. Each subdivision, these are large subdivisions, hundreds of lots. So within the subdivision, there are parks, trails, lakes, playgrounds, all kinds of features that people want to live by and enjoy. As far as like shopping, there's not a shopping center that people can walk to. Let's say from the Cypress Crossing, the Borough subdivision, or the Summer Lake North subdivision. Those people, they have to drive. The closest kind of shopping center to us is Brentwood. If they want something more elaborate, they have to come here or drive to Livermore or San Jose. But right now there is a property along at the East Cyprus Road and Sellers Avenue that's been zoned for commercial for many years. And everybody, all the houses around it, they keep asking us, well, when is Trader Joe's coming? When is Safeway coming? I said, we don't build those things, and Safeway obviously isn't coming there, but finally a gas station and a car wash they're building there. So the more traditional shopping right now doesn't exist in Oakley.
Okay. Well, I think it's great to have like parks and schools
Yeah,
in
no.
those subdivisions, right? Because that's increasing accessibility
Definitely,
right
our
there.
pride is our parks. I mean, we have some of the finest parks anywhere. If any of you out there visit our parks, we put a lot of effort to make sure our parks are top-notch. And again, we have nearly 38 parks. We're building 2 new parks, and all of the developers build the park as a part of their subdivision. So not only they build the houses, but essentially for the residents. So you get a subdivision, you get a new park. And these are, again, first-class parks. For a lifestyle, when people live out there, if you take out the whole commute back and forth, it's a good lifestyle. I mean, you're close to schools, you have a kind of tranquil, away from the hustle and bustle of a big city, and you enjoy.
Great. All right, those were all my questions. Thank you.
I just had a few questions. Again, thank you for your presentation. I saw that in your, part of your housing, the implementation from, I think, 2022, 23, that you were a fairly large section, you were rezoning from commercial to more moderate density housing. Is that kind of an infill project, or is that, because it sounds like almost all of your development is pretty much new, like into agricultural property or vineyard property. As far as the Amtrak platform, it looks like you're trying to use that to hopefully revitalize your downtown and bring in some commercial. So is there any way that you're looking at kind of more multi-zoning where you could have, you know, I think there's a small project that looked like it was downtown. I think that was like shopping on the bottom with units on top. Is there any more of that for like infill projects around downtown?
Yes and no. The project you mentioned is a small triangular piece of property that a developer has bought. This really backs into the railroad track, so the back of the property is the right-of-way of Burlington North and Santa Fe. And they're building a two-story building. It's about 7,000 square foot. That first floor is a restaurant, and second floor, I believe, about 7 apartments they're building. We definitely encourage that type of development, mixed use, and because it's not close to the railroad track, close to a train station, I think the hope is that you come there, you live there, you get on a train, let's say you come here to work, and afternoon you go on a train and go back, and you don't have to get on a buses and cars and things of that nature. There has been a increasing trend in Oakley. There are properties that are zoned commercial, and they've been sitting there for years and years and years, and just no activity. So the property owners have come here time to time with planning. They want to rezone, change the zoning, because they say leaving it as is, basically you get an empty lot with no takers. So that's one element that I see down the road, probably more of it. Somehow change the zoning to mixed use or residential. Right now, the big ticket, everybody wants to come build housing there. And then the agricultural lands, the pastures and the vineyards are slowly transformed. And there is a discussion in the community. Some of the people who have been there for a long time, they don't like it. Well, we've been here for 4 years. I mean, you can imagine 4 years ago what that area looked like. It was pure agriculture, none of the stuff. So now, cars are here. I mean, there is a kind of interesting dynamics. So we don't want subdivision. So, well, farmer sells it to developer goes through process. For property, he wants to build houses, and he's got buyers for the houses. So there are some of those struggles that I think will continue as the community kind of transforms over the next many years. Probably kind of what it used to be, more agricultural, to a more of a urban setting. And I think our hope is that eventually once there's enough housing there, more commercial will come. Shopping center, things of that nature that would cater that. I've heard this saying that developers say you have to have 50,000 rooftops, residential rooftops, so commercial developers will come. So Oakley was about 20,000 20 plus years ago. Now it's 45,000. So maybe in 2-3 years, it'll reach that 50,000 threshold. And we'll see how the development. You saw at the previous presentation I made a few years ago, the far east end of Oakley, near Highway 160, There was a old DuPont factory that was decommissioned decades ago and sat there for many years. A large developer came, bought it, and developed it into a large light industrial area. It's kind of our Amazon campus there. They built nearly 2 million square foot of building. That's kind of our other pride and joy, that we have an Amazon fulfillment center in Oakley, right at the intersection of Main Street and Highway 160.
I mean, did you have any comments? I wouldn't necessarily expect you as just coming in fresh, but if you did, by all means.
I can ask a couple of questions.
Please do.
Well, I live in Brentwood, so I know Oakley very well. I used to work in Oakley 10 years ago.
Oh.
We used to drive to Antioch to get lunch. So I've seen last five years it has grown significantly in terms of especially housing, right? So I got two-part question. I know sometimes the developers kind of put a fund aside for the city to kind of use it for some kind of transportation needs. I don't know if you mentioned 3 developers in your presentation. Are they assisting city in any of the transportation needs?
Developers who come out in Oakley area, we have a traffic impact fee basically for each housing unit they built. There's a traffic impact fee they pay. That money goes into a fund account in our city, and we use that to do the major roadway improvements. All of the East Cypress Road that I mentioned is being built right now is primarily paid out of the traffic impact fees that the developers pay. So the money goes back into the kind of a street network to build new roadways.
Okay, so thank you for that. I think the other question that I had was kind of piggybacks with the zoning question. Is city kind of friendly in terms of converting the agricultural zoning to residential or commercial, or is it a tough process?
It is a process. I wouldn't call it tough or easy. I've seen developers and farmers who have come and kind of went through the planning process, which is own thing, to convert their zoning of their particular area. One of the ones that I remember 2-3 years ago, it was a vineyard that they didn't want to kind of change it to something else. It was a R10, the 10,000 square foot lot from many years ago. And they said, nobody even is looking at this property for 10,000 square foot lot. Nobody wants it. So they came and changed the zoning to a 6,000 square foot lot. But we're open for business, basically, as developers come. However they do, they work according to the planning rules and guidelines. They process their applications. And generally, again, I've seen there's been a trend to try to change some of the more historic commercial zones to residential. Just as example, across from the Safeway Shopping Center, our Laura Road, Laura and O'Hara, literally on the south side of Laura, there's a vineyard. It's 24 acres. It's an old vineyard, has been in the family, really nice people. And right now it's a for sale sign on it. And it's zoned for commercial, and they can't find a commercial developer who's interested. So they're trying to work with developers who may want to do some housing, some commercial, mixed use, something that's kind of viable for today's market.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Member Esquivel, we can see your forehead and sometimes your eyes, but wanted to, hello. I wanted to
Hi.
see if you had
Thank
any questions or comments for Kevin?
I do have one question. my comments are, 700 pages. Wow, that was a lot. So thank you for the report. I love the comments from the public regarding housing. Those are really interesting. And I like the fact that you guys constructed a new bathroom. I love bathrooms for the public. So those are great things to have in the report. I love, it was 700 pages long, but anyway, so my question on page 51, what is recognized obligation payment schedule? ROPS. It was 12 million, and I actually don't know what that is. Are those bonds for construction? Or,
Matt, you
It looks like it's part of the Oakley Housing Fund. The ROPS schedule funding.
where does the money come from? It's just curiosity. Like, Oakley, yeah, page 51.
Yeah.
Of the top.
We can check with the
that-
planning department.
Yes, I think, Matt, we have to talk to the planning about that. I would not be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
But for the benefit of, we are not building houses, we're definitely not in the housing business. We process developer application for housing, but Oakley has no funding or interest to go build more houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like it has something to do with the successor agencies after, after redevelopment went away. So when cities were contributing more to housing directly. So yeah, we can
Maybe we can
circle
talk
back.
to Evan about that.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where my question was coming from. I was wondering how housing gets funded and if it was something like, yeah, okay, I was wondering if that helped towards housing. Because it was 12 million, but I wonder, okay, that was my question. Thank you. Great report. Any plans for using the Measure J funds? Or any talk within the agency? It was just for discussion.
Maybe ask that question again,
Oh.
Member Esquivel. I wasn't tracking it. Yeah, I didn't quite track it.
Okay, all right, no, that's it for me. Thank you.
Again, I'll.
Oh, I'm sorry, you want me to ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
yes. So, when we're looking at the LSM report, I was just wondering if the city of Oakley, like if it had ideas of where to spend the Measure J funds. If, like bike paths, bathrooms, or if there were any plans for stuff like that, trails, lighting, better, more roads, I don't, because there's quite a bit of money there.
We're not using Measure J to build bathrooms, that's for sure. Measure J, Measure J is used for building transportation network, streets, trails, things of that nature. We're not, strictly to those parks, facilities. Those are when they're built, they're funded separately from different sources of funding.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to ask. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, I echo the thanks of the other members for your presentation. There was a quite thick report, as Member Esquivel noted. A couple of items caught my attention, and I was hoping maybe you could unpack them a bit. Back in the, I think, capital improvement section, there was a Project 186 that spoke of the Cypress Road Bridge at the canal. You've been talking about the canal and crossings and burying quite a bit. Then there was a Project 187, which was Main Street Bridge at the canal. And in both cases, it says they're deficient and they need to be reconstructed to be safe and secure. And it goes on to say there was preliminary project design in 2016-17 and no additional funding is requested. So it's kind of like there's this on the surface, it appears there's this fairly significant gap in time between when the bridge was identified as structurally deficient and today, and just trying to understand how I and other members should understand kind of what's the story there.
Certainly, I can clarify that. The Contra Costa Water District, the canal that runs from here to all the way Oakley and beyond, they've been undertaking a process to underground this canal for assortment of reasons. And the section of in Oakley, basically from Main Street going east, all has been undergrounded except the section that's under East Cypress Road. That's a project that I mentioned. We're working with them as we speak, and that will be undergrounded. From Main Street coming west, that is an open canal. They plan to underground it at some point, funding and other reasons, so we don't know when that will take place. We have two structures, two bridges that cross that canal. Right. Capital Project 187, which is on Main Street, that you mentioned. That project, that bridge had some structural deficiencies. We did a preliminary design. We were fortunate to get state funding through Highway Bridge Replacement Program. We fixed that bridge. That project was finished last year. So that's done and over with. The project 186, which is the West Cypress Road Bridge over Contra Costa Canal, that's the tougher task, because we've had some preliminary discussion with Contra Costa and said, well, this bridge has an assortment of utilities suspended from it. And we asked them, well, when are you plan to underground? Because if you go underground, we don't build the bridge. So we don't have a definitive answer as far as when that project is done. This bridge is much smaller than the bridge across Main Street. Main Street spanned 4 lanes. It was a bridge. This is a very small structure. It's just old. And eventually would have to be replaced. So we work with the Contra Costa and see what's their plan for the canal underground, because if that's undergrounded, the bridge goes away.
Got it. And so how vulnerable, because you had mentioned the traffic in 5 minutes, you have an accident that shuts down, I think you.
That's on East Cypress Road, not on West Cypress Road. East Cypress is from Main Street east all the way to the Delta. This one is much more in the middle of the town.
So less vulnerability
Yes.
if the bridge was to have some
Oh yeah,
sort of failure
there are
between
many
now-
ways to get around this side, but if you're on far east Oakley and you drive on East Cypress, you have one way out, a 2-lane roadway. That's it.
Gotcha. Notwithstanding, I guess if the bridge is structurally deficient, like how many more years does it last before it might?
We've communicated with Caltrans where they do the bridge inspections, and they're based on their assessment. They say structurally deficient. We've looked at it. We don't think it's not an imminent danger that this thing will go fall into the canal. This bridge is. Again, I use the term loosely when we say bridge. Is not a humongous structure. It just spans 20 feet over the canal.
Got it. It was just it will need to be reconstructed to continue to be safe and remain in
Yes,
service.
no, that's definitely, and
But there's degrees of
Correct.
deficiency, of course.
Yeah.
Just a couple other quick ones, kind of in that same section. I was intrigued by a curb gutter repair project that there was a 50-50 cost share with, I guess, the landowner. And maybe this is a question for staff. I don't recall seeing that before and thought it was intriguing that maybe to encourage and help with maintaining quality curbs, gutters, that there's funds provided, kind of pairing up to the citizens who, I guess, have responsibility for that portion that's in front of their
You
yard.
know, in California, the state law states that you're a property owner. Along the frontage of your property, you're responsible for maintenance of curb, gutter, sidewalk. That's most cities, when something happens, they said, okay, Mr. Property Owner, you deal with it. But as you know, when incident happens, a trip and fall, injury, they're gonna come and sue the property owner, they're gonna sue the city. City is getting involved in it. And some cities completely say, you deal with it, we'll fight the battle in the court. Our council wanted to be, you know, to help folks out there. So we came up with this cost share program where, let's say, a section of sidewalk in front of your house is uplifted by 3 routes. We bundled this site with many other sites through the city as a part of a project. We replace them, and we, let's say it costs $1,000 to replace sidewalk in front of your house. We pay $500, you pay $500, and actually we do all the work. So in theory, it's a 50-50, but city does most of the work, which is fine. We don't want any accidents out there. We don't want people to have, you know, trip and fall cases. I much rather fix those and have to be sitting in a court litigation on some bad accident that can happen. So the program has worked good for us. The community likes it. And usually we spend about $150,000 per year to do those repairs.
So you get some economy of scale and
Yeah.
get a potential liability. I like it. I just, it was something I had seen, personally seen before.
I've heard
Wanted to
some
applaud it.
cities have kind of similar model, not too many. You know, for us, it's again, being a relatively smaller area, is viable. I'm not sure kind of that business model works for San Francisco or San Jose's of the world. But.
Right. Yeah, and last, I'll just make a comment. You just take it away and consider it for next time. There were a lot of kind of the project cash flows in the back of the document where it showed the current fiscal year spend, but if it was 6-7 million in construction, there had to be design work in previous years and engineering work in previous years. And I actually like to see that full picture of what's being spent, you know, in the current review period, what had been spent, kind of the pace of the spend, and then what's coming, you know, what are some big tickets that may be out there, and just kind of just seeing that picture, I guess, from a former life, having project investment responsibility, just having that richness of project soup to nuts as to how it, you know, it's funding from design all the way through to closure is, I think, very helpful. So if you could consider that, I think the information must be there.
No, the information is there as soon as a part of our bigger budget. This is a summary, but yeah, especially these multi-million-dollar projects take several years. You design, you know, the routine. So it's not done in 1 year.
Right.
And there's a process. But yeah, that's a good point. Perhaps we can modify our format to kind of be show the you know all the expenditures. No,
usually that's what we see from other.
Okay, no, that's a good point. We'll take a look at it for next year.
And that wraps us up unless anybody has had a follow-up question that's come to mind. And I'm glancing around and am not seeing that. So again, thank you, Kevin. Emily, have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any written public comments.
Okay, no one from the public. We are ready for a motion to recommend approval of the growth management plan checklist for the city of Oakley.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it, Saunders.
Thanks to both of you. Emily, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Member Erickson?
Aye.
Member Esquivel?
Yes.
Member Essel Sego?
Aye.
Member James?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Yes.
Member Saunders?
Yes.
Member Stark?
Aye.
Member Vedantam?
Aye.
Member Wayne?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovejoy?
Aye.
Chair Carr?
Aye.
My motion passes unanimously with members Ash Bankert and Shakiran absent.
Thank you, Emily. And
Thank you.
our next item is an action seeking input on the SR4 vision study submittal to Caltrans. Mr. Kelly from staff will be presenting that. Doesn't quite touch Oakley, but comes reasonably close. Certainly, I think this will be of interest to Brentwood as well. So you joined just in the nick of time. Matt, over to you.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. Matt Kelly here with the authority, here to present the State Route 4 Corridor Vision Study. I will talk a little bit about what this project is about and the reason we're bringing it here to you tonight. Glad that didn't end in a crash sound. My office looks out on that intersection, and so I fear that every day. But that's why we're in transportation, right? What we're here to talk about is the State Route 4 Vision Study. As you know, or as you probably know or might know, and from looking at this map, you can see that State Route 4 travels across basically the entirety of Contra Costa County from east to west or west to east, starting at I-80 in Hercules and going all the way to the San Joaquin County line in the Discovery Bay area. Though, coming up with a vision for a highway that travels through so many different environments, geographies, it isn't really possible. So when we say vision, it's not a single vision for the corridor. But I'll get into what we really were trying to do in just a moment. Like I said, there's a lot going on Highway 4 just because it does cross the county and touch so many different communities and different, geographies and development patterns and things like that from, a little more dense and urban in the west and central, and then getting all the way out to, rural when you get out to the Byron area south of Brentwood. And over the past 5 years or so, there have been several efforts, both at the CCTA level, at the MTC regional, Bay Area level, but also amongst the local jurisdictions along the corridor that have been going on that may not have been talking to each other, so kind of planning in various silos. What we wanted to do is take all those various studies and projects and things that have been studied over the last several years and really stitch them together. So that was the first goal. And so looking at some of those efforts that were going on, we had the State Route 4 Integrated Corridor Mobility Project that CCTA was leading. This was probably about 8 years ago, so ICM, Integrated Corridor Mobility, was kind of the trend for operating freeways, kind of in a quote unquote smart fashion, and it really was deployed first on I-80, the I-80 Smart Corridor between the Bay Bridge and the Carquinez Bridge. If you've been through that corridor, you'll notice the gantries that, try and tell you when there's an accident and whether to slow down. And then there's the signage that gets you off the freeway in case there's an incident and gets you back on after the incident. It is a smarter way of operating a corridor, but it really was first generation, the whole ICM thing. So what we wanted to do was we put a pause on that because the findings from I-80 weren't groundbreaking. It wasn't like, okay, we have to replicate what was done on I-80 on Highway 4. It was like, well, let's look at what we learned from that effort on 80 and maybe do it differently on Highway 4. So then there was the State Route 4 Design Alternatives Assessment. That was an effort to look at Highway 4 mainly in East County and look at what could be done in terms of operations via a new either HOV lane or express lane. There's already an HOV lane out there now, so this looked at converting that to an express lane, a tolled lane, or adding a second HOV lane. So that was, a high-level study looking at really building out the managed lane network in the Bay Area. Project that CCTA led was the East County Integrated Transit Study, which was looking at an extension of transit beyond the Antioch BART station down to the Brentwood Intermodal Center, which is between Lone Tree and Sand Creek Road, and there is a future transit center that's going to be built there, along with the Brentwood development of an office park, the Brentwood Innovation Center. So we looked at extending BART and some bus options for that corridor. There is also the SR4 Operational Improvements Project, which is a project between Port Chicago Highway in Concord and basically Bailey Road in Pittsburgh, and looking at, if you live out there, that's where all the traffic is, both in the east and westbound direction in the morning and evening. So looking to see if there's a way to operationally improve that congestion through there. There's the State Route 4 I-680 interchange project. It's a 7-phase project to completely rebuild the interchange there. And that's been studied over the last probably 25 years. And then there's the State Route 239 project and really focusing in on the airport connector, which is the initial focus of that project, to build a connector between Vasco Road and Byron Highway near the Byron Airport. And then over in West County, the Hercules Hub project, which is, I think you guys have heard recently or talked about recently, the project to add a rail station along the Capitol Corridor line and other improvements there along the waterfront in Hercules. So we had these several big efforts going on, and then lots of little efforts, lots of active transportation plans and general plans and specific plans along the corridor that we really wanted to stitch together and come up with a plan for the corridor. Then at the same time, SB 1 was approved statewide, which is the gas tax bill. And Caltrans developed a series of funding programs, grant funding programs funded by SB 1. And the requirement of one of the major grant funding sources in there, which is called SCCP, the Solutions for Congested Corridors Program. In order to apply for funding through that program, you have to have, sorry, I'm getting acronym crazy, you have to have a CMCP in place with Caltrans, and that is a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. So unless you have a Caltrans approved CMCP, you cannot even apply for Solutions for Congested Corridors funds and other SB1 funds. So generally, Caltrans leads a CMCP. When they've got a project they want to get funding for, they will, bring folks like us in and prepare a CMCP. Actually, you guys received a presentation on the I-680 CMCP, which went along with the Express Lane project there. So that was about 6 or 8 months ago, I think you saw that CMCP, and Caltrans was here to present that. Well, since we were undertaking this project, we spoke with our counterparts at Caltrans District 4 and said, hey, we're working on this plan for Highway 4. Could it qualify as a CMCP? We negotiated. They basically said, as long as this list of modes here that you see on the slide are included, that they would consider this a valid CMCP. And so we worked with Caltrans, as part of the project. But basically, we moved forward with the intention of this being a CMCP document once it's completed. So those modes that we promised to address were, vehicles, transit, freight, bike, pedestrian, and emerging technologies. And in the past, Caltrans corridor plans, did primarily focus on the automobile. So this is really a step beyond their previous corridor plans. And really what it's trying to do is, if there is a project on the highway that's seeking funding, that it tries to identify other projects in the area that support that investment, but also provide multimodal options, whether it's around that project or as part of that project or through that project. So it's not just a highway project standing on its own, that it's supported by other investments and it's multimodal. So here are all the stakeholders that were part of the vision study, CCTA plus Caltrans, MTC, the county, and then the transit agencies, the RTPCs, and all the cities. So the vision that we came up with all those stakeholders, I'm not going to read it because it's a bit of a word salad, but it basically is, focusing on safe travel, equitable travel, diverse modal options that we aren't just focusing on the vehicle, that we're looking at first and last mile connections, and that we are improving reliability, sustainability, and economic vitality in the corridor. So benefits of that vision. One, you can improve equitable access, and equitable in this sense means investing in disadvantaged communities or communities that have been underinvested over the years. And there's a lot of those communities along Highway 4 that haven't always received the same level of investment, especially from transportation over the years. You can incorporate community-supported solutions by using this collection of plans that have already been prepared. A lot of the projects that have been identified for these communities have already been vetted. So we're not trying to come in with new solutions. We're using solutions that have already been identified in these areas and have support. So reducing congestion, by really focusing on non-single occupant vehicles, you can start boosting mode share to other modes, both transit, carpools, and getting people on bikes and walking, and that can start to affect congestion on the highway. And then VMT reduction strategies, which mostly revolve around transportation demand management, like providing carpool incentives, providing free transit passes, things like that can really start to move the needle, get people onto other modes and affect congestion. By making the system more reliable, you're not just getting more cars through the corridor. The goal is to get more people and goods through the corridor. So by increasing the reliability, people might be more likely to take transit if they know the transit trip is going to take 20 minutes every time, as opposed to 20 minutes someday and 30 minutes another day. And same with the highway. When the highway is more reliable, then you can put transit on the highway. People's commute is more predictable, and that can encourage businesses to locate on the corridor if things are reliable. They can get their goods from their headquarters to their warehouses faster. And supporting non-capital strategies like focusing on operations and not widening the highway. What can you do in terms of ramp metering or the express lanes, pricing things to improve system reliability, because we know that widening the highways is much more difficult to do these days. And sustainability, so by doing all the things above, you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And, so a lot of the communities along the corridor, as Oakley staff mentioned, they're trying to provide, they're zoning and planning for high-density development. In some cases, they are constructing it. So we want to be able to provide access to those areas that are zoned for high-density development. So maybe if the transportation is improved, getting to downtown Oakley, the developers will follow and build that dense housing there. So in order to achieve the corridor vision and modal diversity, people using all modes, you have to improve that transit reliability. As I just mentioned, people are much more likely to take a bus if they know if it's going to arrive at the same time every day and get them to their destination on time. So by building, by actually investing in the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, and high-quality bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, you can really start to get people to switch their modes. But it does have to be high quality, and not just go for a few blocks. High-quality bike infrastructure to nowhere. That doesn't really help anybody. So taking a holistic approach, especially when we're looking at transit, are we putting in a transit line or a bus line? Like BART is really good at getting you from, across the county or across the bay, but it doesn't get you from your house to the station or from the station to your job or whatever your destination is, at least not always. And so having those connections beyond the stations, that first and last mile connectivity. And in some parts of the county, like East County, it may be a first, last 3 miles or 5 miles that you're trying to achieve. So having that good quality infrastructure, having the buses, having bike paths that can cover that last mile is really important. And we think to do that, pursuing our mobility hubs program around the county is really important, and creating nodes where people can switch modes or connect from one mode to the other, especially closer to their homes or destinations, really makes that easier. As I mentioned earlier, improving efficiency on the highway with tolling, by tolling or congestion pricing, we think is a good strategy. And then getting new, innovative technologies out there that whether it's different types of transit, on-demand transit, or different transit modes, or technology like when it comes to ramp metering, things like that, or signal timing. And then safety, like I mentioned, those higher quality bike and pedestrian facilities, those are really going to move the needle. People feel safe on those, and they're much more likely to use them. And then focusing on where we know collisions are happening, and really applying improvements there, and then trying to make sure those that the hot spots don't just move down the road, that we're constantly monitoring and providing improvements for those locations. So the study elements, as I mentioned, it was really built upon those existing and ongoing efforts. We weren't trying to come up with a new plan. We were really trying to stitch together the existing plans to come up with a new vision. So in addition to stitching all those together, we identified 4 areas where we did need to do a bit more analysis to kind of flesh out or really fill out the plan. And that was identifying those corridor collision hotspots, looking at the freight system, like is Highway 4 a freight corridor, and do we need to be planning for freight on Highway 4? Are there any issues on the arterials that are affected by Highway 4? You know, is locations where it's congested actually affecting parallel or crossing arterials? And then what are the technologies out there that we could apply in the corridor? We also established evaluation criteria so we could apply the project criteria that, you know, basically represents the goals of and objectives of the plan against projects. So how do the projects score against the criteria? And then we scored those projects, called it screening, project screening, and then bundled them based on their location and how they best interacted and supported those bigger projects in the corridor. And then the goal is to finalize all that in the vision plan and submit to Caltrans for CMCP approval. And then once that happens, the goal is to really leverage the plan to pursue project funding. So both those projects on Highway 4 that we can apply to through the Solutions for Congested Corridors, but also all the projects named in the corridor, leveraging this to find funding for them. Because there's a lot of you know, low-hanging fruit, some less expensive projects in here that we think could be funded more rapidly. So initially, when we started this project, we reached out to a set of groups for you know, what else do we need to be looking at in this study, or what were we missing in our original scope? And we did come to this group probably about 2 to 3 years ago when we were scoping the project. And what we heard was you should include Ignacio Valley Road and Kirker Pass in your project analysis, because as everybody who lives along those corridors know, if Highway 4 is congested, they're using Ignacio Valley and Kirker Pass. We did consider that. However, staff felt that those routes, or that it's kind of a single route, you know, between Highway 4 and 680, it's its own corridor. You can't look at Highway 4 and also come up with a comprehensive plan for Ignacio Valley and Kirker Pass. So what we've committed to do through our countywide transportation plan is to do a focused corridor study and transit study on that corridor. It has been named in the integrated transit plan as a priority transit corridor. So yeah, in the next couple of years, you'll see a focused plan for that corridor. So we were asked to consider strategies to improve bicycle mobility between basically East and Central County over the Willow Pass. And that is something we've considered in this plan, and you'll see some projects in here that address that. Confirmed that basically our analysis and our modeling included full build-out of the Concord Naval Weapons Station, since it's right in the middle of the corridor. And we did assume that in our analysis, at least the original build-out of the Concord Naval Weapons Station in the EIR that was completed about in 2013. As you probably know, there's a new EIR underway, but with roughly similar build-outs. And then consider strategies for improving pavement conditions. So that was also something we considered in the plan. So outreach was mentioned earlier. We like to do outreach with all of our plans. Sometimes it's coordinated with other efforts. This, we already had a summer event series going on. So we, at the, this events on the Highway 4 corridor, we brought out special Highway 4 boards and had the public mark those up with their concerns. So here's a list of those events we went to, the number of people engaged, and then we also had an online public survey. We received a couple hundred responses there. Overall, what we heard is that we really need to focus on improving bottlenecks. We heard that most from East County, but we also heard it in West County. I was at the Hercules event, and folks there were talking about traffic on Highway 4, but not necessarily traffic in Hercules, but when they drive east, they hit traffic. So, you know, people aren't just, if they've seen traffic on the corridor in their travels, they talked about it. Roadway maintenance, people talked about the condition of the highway itself, and that it really could use some maintenance. I can tell you that the western part of the highway is getting the Caltrans maintenance treatment this summer, so look for new roadway surface there. And then half of folks talked about safety, so that was really a big topic. So going back to those four analyses that we engaged in, just to kind of make sure we really had a good understanding of the corridor. So in terms of safety analysis, we identified all the hot spots, and one big takeaway we found was that 34% of all pedestrian crashes in the corridor resulted in KSIs, which is killed or serious injuries. That is a really high rate. And the reason for that is speed. Pretty bluntly, it's speed. So, you know, one of our takeaways was this was to look at projects that could affect speed and safety. But really, speed is something that the local agencies have to address. That in our conversations with the cities, we really, you know, focused on that and stressed the need to address speed. And we're really addressing that in our countywide transportation plan. That's one of the main goals of the CTP, is to address speed, safety through speed. So you may not see that many projects in this plan that directly address speed, but it is something we are addressing in the countywide plan on kind of a programmatic level. So looking at freight, what we found by using streetlight data and kind of tracking where all the freight vehicles were going, we found that Highway 4 really isn't a through freight corridor. There are trucks that are using it to get from, say, the warehousing areas along 80 in Richmond and, say, the Port of Oakland over to 680, but they're not using it, you know, to get to the Central Valley or anything like that. And they may be getting on in Concord around the 680 interchange. There's a lot of warehousing out there, but they're not, they're using that maybe to get back over to 80. There is some sensitivity to other highways, like when 580 is backed up over the Altamont Pass, we may see some cut through up the Byron Highway, but Caltrans doesn't consider it a freight corridor, the feds don't consider it a freight corridor, and we don't consider it a freight corridor, but we did want to, you know, note the, you know, document the areas where there are issues, but, Yep, yep. Yeah, there are some trips that do go up Byron Highway, but for the most part, they do stick to the freeways when there's not congestion. So the arterial operations, we did find, and, you know, this makes sense, that the problematic segments were where there's a lot of congestion on Highway 4, and you can see those on this map, the arterial network map, those black, dark segments are the ones that are affected, and they're mostly in East County, between 242 and Lone Tree Road. So those are areas where we looked for projects that could address the arterials. And then we evaluated 14 technologies that have been deployed by Caltrans or the municipalities, and as I mentioned earlier, those were mostly ramp metering and signal timing. So there's a lot of new, especially with signal timing and ramp metering, there's new configurations and adaptive ramp metering where the ramps are talking to each other. So they're kind of addressing the entire system between all the ramps. So we've recommended some of those technologies as well. So we went through 79 documents. We pulled 87 projects from those documents to score, and our TAC reviewed that as well. As I mentioned, we applied that against the goal-based criteria. Out of that, we came up with 3 tiers of projects prioritized by their scoring, and out of that, we focused on the Tier 1 projects, or the highest scoring projects, and created bundles around those projects, and created basically supportive projects around the Tier 1 projects or other issue areas. I'll show you those briefly so you know what I'm talking about. But the criteria we used is here on your right: safety, mobility, economic vitality, equity, land use, efficiency, technology, and air quality, health and sustainability. And you can see they were weighted towards safety, mobility, and social equity. These are the Tier 1 projects. So all of these projects were included in one of our bundles. We did include some Tier 2 projects when we needed to fill out a bundle, but we did not include any Tier 3 projects. The highest scored project in the county was the Hercules Rail Hub, which was exciting. You can see the other projects. They are a variety of types of projects, and mostly in the eastern part of the corridor. So the implementation plan was, as I mentioned, to create these project bundles out of the Tier 1 projects. We felt the bundling improved competitiveness of the smaller projects that are in there that we think when there are larger projects that are VMT increasing projects, we think these supportive projects actually can serve as our VMT reduction strategy for the bigger projects. So we think that in addition to supporting those projects just on a multimodal level, they also can help get those projects approved, and then get the smaller projects funded through the whole VMT mitigation process that you have to go through now to approve any project that increases VMT. You have to have a suite of projects that reduce VMT. So we think that's a good way to fund all the projects listed in here through that process. We also identified capital costs for all the projects and identified potential funding programs for each project. So in addition to, say, being funded through a VMT mitigation program, we tried to identify grant funding programs that these projects would qualify for. And then we organized them into fact sheets. And so just the one I have here, for example, is the Hercules Hub. The Hercules Hub is there on the shoreline, kind of on the left, number one. But we've kind of tried to complement it with projects that provide access to the hub. So most of Hercules is on the east side of the freeway. There's also the current transit center is on the east side of the freeway. Right now, we actually, it was our old Pinole representative used to complain a lot about getting across Sycamore Avenue under the freeway. So we've identified a project here that would get bicycles and pedestrians under the freeway and get them from the transit center down to the waterfront and the Hercules Hub. There's also other projects there that would assist in that as well as some improvements for buses to actually get through that interchange there. This here is showing all the project bundles we came up with, and the bundles are in your packet, and I can go through them individually if you'd like to talk about them individually. But want to note that in addition to the project hubs or the project bundles you're seeing here, there's also the Smart Signals project bundle that includes all of the smart signals. As you know, you may know, there's about 350 smart signals as part of our program around the county. We included all the smart signals in this corridor to hopefully get those funded faster and add to that program. And then we've also included the shared mobility hubs as a bundle. So all the shared mobility hubs that have been identified as part of our countywide plan there have been included in a separate bundle. So that is, next steps, got to get to that. So we presented to all the RTPCs, or 3 of the 4 RTPCs that fall along Highway 4 over the last couple of months. And now we're starting our trip through the CCTA committees. You are the first. We'll then be coordinating with Caltrans on their CMCP approval, where they adopt this as a CMCP, and then we start working with the corridor agencies and the state to support project funding and implementation efforts. So that is my presentation, and I can certainly take any questions. What we're looking for tonight is basically any input you have, but the direction we're looking to from our board is to approve this and submit to Caltrans for the CMC approval process.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. And just so I'm clear, this is actually going to be something that we do take a roll call vote on for approving the study or recommending approval to the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Board? Is that what we're doing?
That's appropriate, yes. It was mostly for input, but we included the language. We would like your support here.
So a formality of the support. So I guess the question I would ask, first of all, I don't think I'll go around the room, but just let folks pop in ad hoc. And given what folks have heard, maybe just a general question of, are you comfortable enough to actually go through a formal recommendation of approval, or do you feel like you need to hear more, or is there a general, hey, I'm pretty tranquil about this and happy to take that vote today, or feel like there's a lot of digging you want to do, and if the case, then maybe we give an opportunity for folks to do that probing if they feel like they need it.
If you don't mind, I'd like to say something short, and it's super high level. So I don't need any questions answered. I guess, I mean, on some level, and this is not, certainly not directed at the CCTA themselves, who have done fantastic work on this. But essentially, this is, to sum it up, this is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic because the state wants to see a bundle of this analysis, which is, I don't want to say recycled, but it's just an aggregate of proposals that have sort of already been analyzed on a micro basis, and now they're being brought together in an aggregate basis so that the organization could be eligible for state funding, because that's a requirement of SB1 for this particular kind of like a congested corridors. In that sense, like there's already been a tremendous amount of analysis done on the smaller pieces of this puzzle, and I think we're not going to contribute anything other than saying, okay, great, this might line us up for some money to get these things done faster.
Sounded right to me.
I would add that I think it had, one of my questions is, what do you think this study cost, Matt, just roughly? And it's been a few years. I mean, how much do you think it was?
I have an exact budget somewhere, but
Just
on the order of a couple of $100,000.
Yeah, okay. And so, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I still think bringing focus, and because this document's going to sit there for, I don't know how many years, but a bunch of years. And if it can be brought to bring some things to a conclusion quicker, I think in the scheme of things, I would probably say that's refocusing is good. And I think that's what this agency does, is kind of brings regional looks from our perspective as opposed to somebody else's perspective. So I think that's all pretty good. I do have one question that, and I'm asking this because I'm involved in a kind of business-related nonprofit that's funded by the government. And so DEI, equity, and all of those things have become, very, interesting, to say the least. So 20% of our thing is sort of equity-related. Is that, I don't think you're going to go change anything because of that now, but is that causing a lot of change in how we might get funding or things like that today, and how these projects get ranked?
But you're pursuing state, not federal
Yeah.
funding. And it's the federal funding that would be at risk, I think, for the policy initiatives you're talking about. Sorry, I'm not trying to, I'm sorry.
That is exactly the
Okay,
answer.
thank
So like with our 680 project, the express lanes, there's a NEPA element of that. And as part of the NEPA document, we did have to change the language. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just ask one clarification question? So from the presentation, basically you have identified from various studies and community input over the years, put together 8 basic hub projects that relate to improvements along the Highway 4. So you're doing this to get, qualify for mainly the congested area funding plus other fundings that have been SB1, SB14, or various grant ones. So when you put this together, then you've ranked those like 1 through 8 as far as the highest priority. So I get, or in your document.
The bundles themselves are not meant to be ranked. That was just a numbering system. The projects were ranked, but the bundles themselves aren't prioritized.
Oh, okay, so there's 8 projects, and even though like the Hercules Hub is one of the projects, but that, even though it was number 1, it's not necessarily prioritized higher than the other 7.
Right.
Is that correct? So in other
when
words, you're going to put it out there and then like put them all and try to get them all funded?
Yeah, so they'll probably each progress on their own schedule. So the Hercules Hub will be going after probably more rail-related funding, but because they are in this document, they will, that will increase their chances. The solutions for congested corridors that I kept mentioning, that's important to CCTA because we plan on applying to that for the SR4 I-680 interchange, which, by the way, just received $58 million in state I don't want to get, TCEP, TCEP, don't ask me what that means, funding. So, yeah, we're cobbling together all of a sudden a lot of money for that interchange that has been languishing for 25 years. So we're hopeful that with SCCP, we can fully fund some phases there. So yeah, that's our immediate plan for SCCP. But we plan to work with the locals to get as many of the projects funded.
Yeah, Matt, I'm getting a sense that there's comfort with maybe taking a vote today, but I'd like to just have a pause that the 4 members whose jurisdictions have Highway 4 passing through them may have just a chance to weigh in here if they have any concerns of significance. So I'm looking at future Vice Chair Essel Sago, Member James, our newest member Vedantam. Did I do it? Did I get it?
Yeah.
All right. And Member Wayne, if there was anything that was jumping out at them that they had heartburn about.
I have some questions.
For today.
No heartburn. I fully support what has been said. I guess the first question is, who or what agency is going to manage the ongoing operations? I know this is more of a funding, right, like initial funding for the project, but after that project has been created, who's maintaining it, or who does that fall on?
It depends on the project. So like if it's a express lane on the highway, that would be, managed by either Caltrans or MTC, who generally manages all the tolled lanes. So it depends. Some would be managed by local agencies. We have included O&M, operations and maintenance, in our cost estimates. Well, we included capital costs, but we also developed O&M costs. So we know what those costs are. So when those folks are applying for funds, they should also be applying for O&M funds. Yeah.
And one other question was, so my gist from or what I took away from the report is that there doesn't seem to be any enforcement, in the sense that how do you reduce vehicle usage beyond like infrastructure expansion?
Yeah, that really, isn't in this plan. I think that is in our countywide plan. That's where we're really being more strategic and, with really defined goals in terms of mode choice and monitoring that mode choice or that change in modes. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that's contained in this plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Yep.
I had a couple questions. I agree with everybody that we would support the plan, but I just had, and I know I'm late to like 2 years late, I think, to the scoping of the document, but I was curious about the connection from 4 down Vasco to 580, and I realize that Vasco is not SR4, so it's not a state route, and it also crosses the county boundary to Alameda County. But I'm curious about whether that connection was considered as part of the scope of this project, because a lot of people, again, are either going east on 4 or south on 4 through Vasco to connect to 580.
So we were focused on the State Route 4 corridor itself, but we did look at the 239 project as a corridor project. And so we assessed it against the criteria. But yeah, we didn't treat it like, as part of the four corridors, as part of the study. It was just outside our boundary.
And then the other piece was, and I know this is a Caltrans document with some lofty goals, right? And a lot of them have to do with mode shift from vehicles to transit and first and last mile. But the majority of the projects are capital infrastructure projects. And really to make those connections, you need a commitment from transit providers to serve those areas. So is that just an inherent sort of challenge with this framework of how we seek funding for these types of projects? Because I don't see us attaining a lot of those goals, applying for solutions for congested corridors funding for infrastructure when we don't have
Are you saying like
operations.
cross-jurisdictional promises made or something?
Or commitments from the transit providers to provide service. And I think the commitments are challenging because they need funding for that.
But wouldn't that be in the regional transportation plan?
Yeah, I mean, some of the transit improvements would be in the RTP. Some of the smaller ones, we did pull for this study from those transit providers' short-range and long-range transit plans. So we were trying to work with what was already in their
Planned
forecast. It may not be enough service to fully serve, the demands, but we did try and incorporate transit improvements from the transit providers themselves.
Their planned improvements
Yeah.
are as part of the plan, okay. And then, I guess lastly, because it sounds like this is, to other people's points, it's just kind of a compilation of projects that have been in the planning phases for many years. Is there anything new that you guys gleaned from, like, putting them together that would modify the projects themselves? Because like the Hercules Hub bundle, there's a lot of good info there, and maybe those other project components modify what the vision for the hub is.
Yeah, I don't know if we've had dialogues with the project sponsors, except when the project sponsor is CCTA, like the SR4 I-680 bundle includes a bicycle pedestrian path kind of through the interchange that wasn't originally a phase of the interchange. It was added later. So we certainly think that strengthens the any application for funding for the interchange project, that it also includes this bike pedestrian connection.
Okay, all right, thanks, Matt, I was just wondering.
I love that question, Member Patel. Member Vedantam, I see your green light is on.
Yeah, I think I wanted to ask about the Vasco Road, but I think Ms. Patel, to add to that, is the SR 239, is that a CCTA-led project, or is it a Caltrans?
Yeah, it is being led by CCTA. It was originally a Contra Costa County project, and they handed it off to us about 10 years ago. So we're going through the environmental process right now with Caltrans. This group has been updated on that project a few times over the years, and it's probably about time for another update. So
Love
we
to
can
hear more about that.
Yeah, okay, we have a request
Thank you.
for a future agenda item. I think it's on our list of items somewhere. We used to have a member who was very focused on that project.
You're like the ghost of the representative from Byron coming
Yeah.
back and
Yes,
haunting us about this. That's great.
yeah,
We need some representation.
yeah. She'd be very happy that you're asking about it. So yes, we'll bring that back. I think when it's at a milestone in the environmental process where we have something to share.
Maybe we've been on too long when we remember ghosts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Member Wayne or Member James, anything else burning for you guys with respect to a
Yeah,
key
I guess
road?
the only question I had was the, I guess the information with the electronic signs, did you think about like how 4 works? Specifically, I know just a pet peeve is on 4, you got the triangle there of 4, 242 and 680. And how 4, especially when you go from 4 to 680, you know, have you thought about, you know, how 242 message signs would be great there to let, you know, maybe take 242 or take 680, have done that kind of analysis? Or is that something that was going to be done in the future? You mentioned you were looking at sign messaging as something you wanted to do at a later date because you wanted to see how, learn lessons from 80.
Yeah, I think that would be part of the design alternatives assessment project and anything, and the express lane, the addition of this express lane, I think that would include all of that signage. And ultimately, the goal is to, for folks who are HOVs or express lanes, is that they stay on Highway 4, and part of the interchange will build a ramp just for the HOV folks to get onto southbound 680. So there would be signage like that, you know, HOVs stay on 4, use 680. Yeah, I think ultimately that will be part of the Highway 4 corridor. Whether it looks like I-80, like I-80 looks today, I'm not sure.
Matt, what's the timeline for the project, both from an approval standpoint and then actually getting the project started?
So we expect to have Caltrans approval of the document by, probably by this fall. They're ready to adopt it. And then we just have to figure out the timing on the next round of grant when SCCP opens up for a new grant cycle. So as soon as that opens up, we'll apply for that. And then we're going to immediately start working with the project sponsors on the corridor to start, you know, implementing their projects, whether it's applying for grant funding or just, there's an OBAG funding cycle coming up. So I think there's going to be lots of funding opportunities in the next couple of years. We just need to work with the sponsors to make sure they're aware and are, you know, promoting these projects.
And I may have missed this earlier, but is the entire project funded by grants, or how does that work?
Well, when you say entire project,
Like all of the hub projects?
yeah, so they won't be funded as a mass. They'll probably be funded by bundle. So it's really just, it depends on timing for the different types of grants that apply to the different types of projects. So I think you'll see them all kind of have various implementation schedules. But I would expect the immediate funding will hopefully come from that SB1 category.
But would like any of the partners have to put in funding for like a particular project?
Well, for the smaller projects, it depends on the grants they're applying for. A lot of grants have, 11 or 12% required match. They can use, their Measure J return to source funds for that. So there's also SB1 return to source funds that they can use for matching funds. So, yeah, a lot of them do require matching funds. The big SB1, the SCCP doesn't, but those, usually the smaller ones do.
Okay.
But we'll work with them to make sure they have those matching funds.
Great.
Super. I guess I would just wrap up comments by a couple of thoughts, reinforcing Member Patel's point that, hey, is there something we learned going through this exercise, even if it was, as one member called it, feels like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic to finally present it in a way that gets some funding off the dime. But to take it, if the world gives you lemon, make lemonade, and then see if there's some learnings there, maybe take that back. I'm hearing that we're probably ready to make this motion. I need to ask you, Emily, if we've received any written public comments.
We have not received any written public comments, and I do not see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, very good. So with that, the ask is that
Oh,
we.
Chair, it does
Sorry.
look like Member Esquivel might have a question.
Oh,
Oh,
no. We're gonna take a vote. I just wanted to make my comment and say, let's approve it because I don't want to delay this project. We want to improve Highway Corridor. El Cerrito's not on Highway Corridor, but I do use it. So I do want to improve it. Thank you.
There's a lot of traffic on it. So I think we are at the place where the requested motion is approval from the CAC of this study for ultimate transmittal to Caltrans after any other approval steps for their acceptance and rapid adoption as a CMCP to enable SB1 grant eligibility and get the projects that are in it funded. So do I have,
After having sat through the 2 years or whatever, 3 years, I will gladly nominate this. It was actually a good process. I liked it.
thank you, Member Saunders. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member James. Emily, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Member Erickson,
Aye.
Member Esquivel,
Aye.
Member Esselstego,
Aye.
Member James,
Aye.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Saunders,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Abstain.
Member Vedantam,
Aye.
Member Wayne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovejoy,
Aye.
Chair Carr.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously with Member Stark abstaining and Members Ash, Bankert, and Shakirin absent.
Excellent. And that takes us to our last three items, which should move through fairly quickly. Do any committee members or staff have anything they would like to share under member staff comments item?
So I met with the Moraga Public Works Director, along with the line of trying to kind of expand our reach and just, get more feedback. So it wasn't a big meeting. Moraga doesn't have a lot of stuff going on, but it was interesting, Matt. I was sort of asking the perspective of what's CCTA to you? Are they easy to work? Just trying to find out. It was very positive, and I think the thing that, I think you've mentioned this before, but his kind of, what he was really happy with, other than, the regular day-to-day work, was how you had helped them kind of bundle a couple different cities for some, I don't even remember what it was, but it was some, high or roadway maintenance thing, and it just by bringing together the various cities, putting them into a position that they were able to get whatever source of funding this was good. So to me, I think it goes back to that comment of, I think CCTA can really bring a group of, there's individual groups, everybody's doing their thing, but just a little bit of working together sometimes gets you further ahead. So that was positive feedback and good.
I just wanted to comment that I was able to make it to CCTA's public summer event series in Richmond. It's for the Juneteenth event. I followed Matt, who is doing the morning shift. I did the afternoon shift. It was really nice to just get out and talk to the public about their transportation needs, concerns, and give them a little bit of education on some of the services that they were not necessarily aware of. So I had some really good conversations. So I encourage you to look for the events in your area and stop by.
Anyone else? I think I need to make sure there's no one in the public with their hand raised.
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Next item is correspondence and communications. To my knowledge, we have none this month. And so that would take us to our last item, future agenda. We picked up one just now. Was there anything else that anyone?
Is it worth having an update on 24 and, out here? I mean, we got that big water funding. I don't know if that's held up now with everything that's going on. Is that worth an update? Yeah,
680 mega
right out in
grant.
front of us here.
Yeah, we could get an update on that.
I think
Do
even
you
just a
wanna-
quick one.
Okay.
Excellent. Any others? Okay, with that, that concludes our meeting. So I'm chair about 27, maybe 30 minutes longer than I expected to be. Thanks for everyone's patience. Thought that was a really good discussion we had around State Route 4. So I think it was worth the extra time, and I think our approval to move it forward, I think, is richer as a result. So thanks, everyone. Good meeting. We're adjourned at 8:30.